Our next guest developed a love for stories as a child. As an adult, she supports schools and communities in nurturing a love of literacy in children. Currently, she serves as the Director of Programs and Partnerships for the Education Partners, where she collaborates with stakeholders to create transformational learning opportunities. Her career began as a teacher in the New York City Department of Education. Her expertise includes leading blended professional learning, developing research-based reading programs, and directing national initiatives advocating for transparency and equity in pre-K through 12th grade education. She has collaborated with organizations such as the Boys Club of New York, Reading is Fundamental, and the National Urban League on Family and Community Literacy Empowerment, and is the author of the Read and Rise Family Guide. Our guest earned a Bachelor's of Art from Syracuse University and a Master of Arts in the Psychological Foundations of Reading from New York University. She is the current International Literacy Association president of the board, where she wholeheartedly served ILA's 300,000 members as they work to guarantee that literacy is a fundamental, inalienable human right for all. Please welcome to Unban Coolies, Kia Brown Dudley.
Thank you so much, Christopher, for the introduction. I'm inspired by your initiative and excited to share information about ILA's efforts to promote children's rights to read.
How did you journey into advocacy? And more specifically, how did you come to be involved with the ILA in their efforts to combat censorship?
You mentioned it a little bit in the introduction, but when I was young, I was raised in a household that had a sea of books, and I discovered the magical powers of stories. My parents were awesome storytellers. Every night was filled with tales that transported me to the past and ignited my imagination, whether it was captivating tales of my ancestors woven with the threads of family history, or whimsical stories we would co-create based on what we saw around us in nature. Storytelling just became the highlight of my young life. And then as years passed, my love of stories grew, and I became an avid explorer of the written word, venturing into the realms of books and libraries. My hunger for knowledge led me to the magical doors of countless literary treasures, where I had the precious right to read whatever my heart desired. And this love led me to a career in teaching, where I support schools and communities in nurturing a love of literacy. While I was at NYU, one of my professors, and she's a past president of ILA, the late Bernice Cullinan, really encouraged her students to become members of the organization. And for those of you who are not familiar with ILA, it is the professional home for literacy educators across the globe. For over 65 years, ILA has set the standards for how literacy is defined, taught, and evaluated. We really strive to connect research and practice for educators. And so we publish cutting-edge peer-reviewed research. We disseminate practical evidence-based resources. We provide impactful professional development, both in person and online. We recognize outstanding teacher preparation programs, and we support teachers, researchers, and literacy advocates with awards and grants. And so that's my journey, how I found my way to ILA and supporting educators and really making sure that every child everywhere has the right to read.
When I was a kid, I was a reluctant reader. But when I started reading My Weird School series by Dan Gutman, because of the crazy antics, it got me into reading. Is there a book that got you excited about reading?
It's interesting. I've always been a reader, but if we think about especially banned books, and one of the books that was really impactful for me as a student was The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. During the first time I read it, it really felt revolutionary to have a young African-American girl as the protagonist. And I was about the same age as Pecola when I read it. So it just was eye-opening for me. For those who aren't familiar with the story, Pecola believed that if she just could be free from what her community labeled as ugly, right? So an abundance of melanin, blackness, if she just had blue eyes, life would be better. And while my home circumstances were different than Pecola's, I could really relate to this appeal of conforming to Eurocentric beauty standards. And even though that book was written over 53 years ago, unfortunately, I believe it's still relevant today, that we still, put a standard on Eurocentric beauty. And I think it's been exacerbated by unrealistic social media portrayals that contribute to body dissatisfaction. So that was just one of the books that really had an impact on my life as a reader. And it led me into a journey into the African American literature section, where I read tons of work, Octavia Butler, autobiography of Malcolm X, and the list goes on, where I really was able to find people and characters that reflected, that I could really relate to.
I'm currently reading The Catcher in the Rye because it talks about things I can relate to, like problems teenagers face, figuring out who they are, and wanting to fit in. Unfortunately, The Catcher in the Rye has been banned or challenged due to foul language, depression, adult themes, and concerns over a student's emotional well-being. Is there a banned book that you're currently reading or want to read?
Oh, wow. There's so many. The list is long, but one that I have actually on my bookshelf that I just checked out from the library are All Boys Aren't Blue, a memoir manifesto by George Johnson. And I really am into using books not only as a mirror, but a window into other lives and perspectives, and really having a deeper understanding of what our community members in the LGBTQIA community are experiencing. So that's one I'm really excited to dig into.
Can you provide an overview of the ILA's stance on censorship and its importance in promoting literacy and free expression?
Thank you. That's such an important question. ILA has the Children's Right to Read initiative, and it's founded on 10 fundamental rights, and it was developed to really ensure that every child everywhere has the access to education, opportunities, and the resources needed to read. Now, these rights are available free on our website, literacyworldwide.org/rights to read, and it's available in 16 different languages. And as you look over the rights to read, several of them are against censorship by nature, but the one that really stands out for me, and that's really direct, is right number 3, which is children have the right to choose what they read. Censoring books, removing them off shelves, removes those choices. And so that's one of the things that we are promoting, and we have resources so that educators, administrators, advocates can really have some guidelines on helping to ensure that children have the right to choose what they read.
How does the ILA collaborate with governments, educational institutions, and other organizations to protect the right to access diverse and inclusive literature?
On the Children's Right to Read site, you can download the rights, as I mentioned. There's also a free advocacy guide, a pledge form, and other supplemental resources. And so we have been working with schools and districts and municipalities on really advocating for the right to read. We've also sponsored free webinars on how to ensure the rights and how to combat censorship in school libraries. ILA has also provided support and helps uplift anti-censorship groups and events. We are one of the founding coalition members of Unite Against Book Bans. So that's just some of the ways that we are really collaborating with governments, other institutions to help protect children's right to read and children's right to access diverse and inclusive literature.
How does the ILA approach the delicate balance between protecting individuals from harmful content and preserving the freedom of expression?
So this really goes back to us promoting the children's right to read. I think as we talk about having that delicate balance for educators in the guide, we really provide support for different people who are really interested in protecting that right. So whether you are a teacher, an advocate, a politician, what are the things that you can do? What steps can you take? And also because we're a global organization, it differs in different parts of the world. So we really partner with our global affiliates and also our chapters here in North America to make sure that the information is timely and relative and relevant to the context that they are in.
Lastly, what advice would you offer to aspiring educators, literacy advocates, and young professionals who are passionate about making a positive impact in the field of literacy, education, and promotion?
Oh, that is an amazing question. One thing I would say is really partner with organizations. So you can partner with the International Literacy Association. We have a plethora of resources that are available to help you on your journey, whether you are a volunteer, a pre-service teacher, an in-service teacher, a professor, a community advocate. We have resources around children's rights to read, which I've discussed. We have the Advocating for Children's Right to Read, the Case for Children's Right to Read, and the Resolution to Adopt Children's Right to Read, which are great. We have access to videos. We recently did a video on censorship in school libraries across the globe, and also one on tackling tough topics through middle grade literature. And Christopher, I can make sure to give you those links. So if you wanted to provide them to your audience. We have articles that have to do with just supporting students, how to challenge banned books, how we can support the right to read, how we can find the joy and choice. I mentioned a little bit before, I believe, a lot of the work as you look at our rights, one of the rights is really based on Rudine Sims Bishop's work. And we have a link to that article. I can give you Windows, Mirrors, and Sliding Glass Doors, which is great. We have briefs that are for teachers and educators and administrators that are available, and blog posts as well. And then once you've gone through our information that ILA has, there are several organizations that have created guides and resource packets and promotional materials and suggestions on how you can guide those discussions and lead action around fighting book bans. So after you've looked on ILA's website, Unite Against Book Bans, they have a toolkit that's fabulous. I Read Dangerously kit from the American Booksellers Association, and there's a community action toolkit that's really great from Get Ready, Stay Ready. So those are just a few of the resources that are available. I would say find a community, whether it's through your school, your local library, that there are lots of activities that are going on around protecting our right to read.
Wow. ILA sounds like an awesome organization and offers a variety of great support for educators.
And at the International Literacy Association, we welcome all. So please feel free. We have resources that are available that are free. We also have different membership options. We are an international organization. So wherever you are around the globe, you can join or find affiliates that are close to your community.
Kia, before we end this discussion, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for taking the time to participate in this interview. Your story and rich experience are very inspiring to me, and I'm sure it'll be inspiring to many others out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just so inspired by the work that you're doing to, combat censorship. We know that it is important not only to hear our voices as educators, but to hear students' voices and the community's voices. So thank you so much for doing this work and speaking out, because censorship is an act of oppression and it's damaging to all readers, but we know the impact is particularly profound on students and peoples from marginalized communities.
Thank you for your kind words. It means a lot. I'm grateful for you and the opportunity for us to have this conversation.
Thank you so much. And we're inspired by the work that you're doing, Christopher.
Have an awesome day. Take care.